and we are certainly glad to have you here this afternoon with our fall 2021 edition of Intersecting Connections. This particular semester, we've decided to focus on what it's like just to get back to what we might consider normal, or what we might just consider trying to get back in this very, very strange situation that we all find ourselves in after COVID. So for the fall, our Intersecting Connections program is entitled What's Up Now? And today we're actually going to talk about what's your new normal, defining it and redefining it, because I think that we're all in a situation where normal is not normal, not what we thought that normal was. And so we just have to kind of figure to go through this all. So we do hope that everyone watching today and or who tunes in later in the to watch the recording get something out of this discussion, because after all, that's what the Intersecting Connections is all about. We are a group of individuals here on campus from the intersection, from SDSJ, from University Housing, and from CAPS, who have decided to come together and to establish some programming that will help not only students, but certainly faculty and staff navigate these very strange waters that we find ourselves in. So as I said, today we're going to be talking about what's your new normal. This particular session is going to be moderated by Mr. Theo Nichols, who is Residence Life. And members of our panel include Angela Gutierrez, who is a student, a first generation student here at the UNLV, also a member of our TIPS Partners program. So we're very glad to have you here today too. Ms. Egypt Howard, who is with the Student Diversity and Social Justice, and Dr. Sharolyn Pollard-Durodola. And without any further ado, I am going to hand this discussion over to Mr. Nichols. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Barlow. Thank you for that amazing introduction. And, I figure we can go ahead and, kind of go right on into it and everything, because we are talking about what this new normal is like. And I know for sure, I know it's at least, I don't know if it's maybe just me but it's a lot going on. We're trying to figure out how we are navigating the space and making sure that we are, trying to be our best and most present selves for ourselves and for our residents and for our students as well too. And so really would love to hear from, you all. And so I have a few questions for you all, and, feel free, we can, just piggyback, jump off of it, however we want to do it. I love to have like a more free flowing conversation. Just really want to enjoy the energy, the vibe, just kind of get the real for what y'all are really going through. And let me know, because I might need some tips and tricks from my own area as well too. So if y'all got it, please feel free to share. I got my notepad ready to go. So we'll go ahead and hop right on into our first question, which is really what did normal used to be for you all, and what is it now? So let's just kind of like really unpack that. What did it used to be? What is it now? How has it changed? Like, how are you all adjusting to this?
Okay, I don't mind sharing. So I feel like what used to be normal was there was some separation, right? I'll note that I'm a mother of two young kids, 3 and 6. So there used to be a lot more separation in my life, where it was like, kids go to school, I go to work, we, have our schedules. And the pandemic really changed that, right? Kids were home for a long time. And so merging school responsibilities and making sure, my kindergartner knows how to use a laptop, and just all these additional skills that I think ended up coming up that I didn't really recognize would be needed. So I feel like my work, family, school life all kind of merged into one. And it was a lot of times where it was like, how do we separate some of this? How do we make space for self-care? How do I make time for, my work, or, even being at home, then working from home? It was like, how do I close the computer, right? And really keep it closed, because all of a sudden work was my home space, or home was my workspace. So I think before there was a lot more separation and some more boundaries that kind of naturally happened, that once the pandemic started, all of that just kind of merged together. And so, as I continue to move forward and we're, figuring out what all of this looks like, I think there's some spaces where like we've kind of separated that back out, right? We have some room to be back on campus. Students are kind of back in school. But I think there's still also just a lot of gray area where we're trying to figure out like, will this last? Or like, how do we handle when folks are sick and they need to be home? And, just negotiating all the details of like keeping folks safe, keeping folks healthy, but then also being able to get work done, spend time with family, and do all the things that, some of the things that we used to be able to do before, that we're still kind of figuring out how to do in a safe and healthy way now.
I think that's a really good point around the boundaries and the blurring of the boundaries. I think the other thing that was normal was not walking around looking like a superhero with the masks on, and I am absolutely glad that is an option, because that's the other piece that's an interesting was the ways that I connected with people was different. And normal is kind of a relative term for me because I got here like March of 2020. So I never really adjusted to the UNLV version of normal. I was here for like 2 whole weeks. I was meeting my colleagues. I was going to people's offices, and then pandemic, and then I went home, and then normal became this kind of ways. And it's so funny because I feel like layers of normal, just the normal layers initially just got stripped off quickly, and then it was just rapidly. And I think that was because of the evolving nature of COVID as a general concept. But even the ways in which I think I managed my life was significantly different pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, I felt like there was a little bit more flexibility in terms of connections with others. So I'm I consider myself an ambivert, which means I like people, but I also like me time a whole lot. And in the initial stages of COVID, it was like, yes, introverts rule. This is how it's going to be. And then I realized that a lot of those connections were sustaining. So I had to sort of figure out how to reimagine connecting with the people that I wanted to connect with. So pre-COVID me would maybe visit or go to my favorite restaurant or hang out in a spot that just kind of brought me calm. Post-COVID me is like, oh no, before you come over, I'm gonna need to ask you a few questions, like TSA in my own house. Like, such and such wants to visit. Oh no, they're not, depending on what their circumstances are. So it created this distance, this barrier between me and a lot of the people that I care about. Pre-COVID me took for granted that I'd have opportunities to connect with some people. We lost 4 people during COVID. So post-COVID me recognizes the frailty of life and the frailty of humanity and the frailty of relationships. And in some ways, post-COVID me works a lot harder to make sure that I'm in communication with the people that I care about. Because pre-COVID me just assumed that, I'd have the opportunity somewhere down the line. So on so many levels, I'm different, socially, emotionally, spiritually. Um, Pre-COVID me, my boundaries were a little bit more fluid. Post-COVID me has installed locks on my boundary house and a Ring doorbell to determine what's acceptable in terms of what I need to take care of me in addition to everything else that's going outside the door.
I'll go next. So in my profession, I used to do a lot of international travel. In fact, that was probably very important, not just for career, but also for personal growth, because I love to travel to far away places that most people wouldn't want to spend 24 hours on a plane to get there. Um, and so it's been very difficult to um, rethink how can I do what I love most in this type of era? What am I willing to take a risk with, and what am I not willing to take a risk with? And because part of that travel included, since I'm not from this area, included traveling to see elder parent or travel to see children, adult children. I now, in this era, because I don't think that we're going to get to a post-COVID. That's something that I've come to accept within the last probably 3 weeks. I don't believe that. I think we've entered a new way of life. And so I've begun to program myself in terms of how does this new life, what is it going to look like? But I now, you know, time spent with them, whether it's on the phone or through Zoom, I feel like it's never enough. I can never get enough of, speaking with them. Can never get enough of, it feels like an insatiable desire. I think one of my older, my son is like, I've got my life now, but I'm like, no, you have to be part of me now because you really experience the isolation of living the way we live. And it's also caused me to, I have always believed that, if there's something that you really want, you make self-sacrifices. You sacrifice time, you sacrifice other things so that you can get whatever this is that you're working for. And I'm not so willing now to sacrifice my effort towards things that don't really bring me a lot of joy. So if it's something that's work related, I never liked it. I still don't like it. So now it may not get done. I'm at a point where, I tell people, if I've been on a committee, I really hated it. I speak up and say, I'm not going to serve on this anymore. So I'm more conscious of what brings me joy and more conscious of a very limited amount of lifetime and wanting to make sure I spend that limited lifetime doing things that are most important to me, even if for society, I'm going against the grain. Like there's certain conferences that, we're supposed to attend, you're supposed to be visible. And I've, had the realization where I don't feel like I'm learning anything at that conference. I don't want to go anymore. I don't want to go anymore. Even if, I'm not on the dean's list of attending the conference, I don't want to go there anymore. So I'm reconsidering, what's important to me, even in my research, which has begun to shift to have more of a critical consciousness there, because I feel like my research has to serve now as a voice for for things that are more important. I don't have time to focus on research questions that everybody else has explored. I don't even want to hear about those questions anymore. So I think I've made a lot of shifts in my professional thinking and in my personal life about what's important to me and where my time should be spent and what I'm just going to let go of totally.
Love that. Love it. We have others who are willing to share as well too, and as far as what their normal looks like in now and what it used to be.
Yeah, so thank you guys for sharing. It's really nice to hear you guys all talk about your different experiences. So just to provide a little bit of context, right? I was in my junior year of high school still when everything about when I first heard about COVID. So I think it's a pretty big difference, because I never got to experience UNLV as it is or as it was pre-COVID time. So I can't really speak to how it was then and how I see it now, but I can tell you that the way that I do school now is very much different from what I used to do then, right? So I had extracurriculars and social and a bunch of other commitments that I had lined up, and I was always full, always had everything going, nothing, not really a lot of time to rest for myself. So I can say that I had a pretty full schedule before. I was doing sports and everything, and honestly, for the first year, right? So that I think that first year, because it's been like a year and a half now. But that first year, I was feeling really unmotivated to do anything. So I wasn't keeping my health up. I can say that for anything. I was not really paying a lot of attention to what was going on in classes. I was just trying to kind of get through it. And I think it's attributed to the fact that my energy was like completely brought down. So I had a really high energy, before COVID started, and it's just kind of slowly started to deplete until like it was almost at, I had no energy, right? I didn't really want to do anything. I was just kind of lazing around the day. Um, but I think it's kind of helping to realize that I don't have to stretch myself too thin. So I don't have to be doing things, even if it's just like, oh, I want to do this so it looks good. So it looks good on my resume because I need to do it. But rather, it's because I want to do it and it also helps me. So I kind of try to kill two birds with one stone. I don't try to force myself to do something that I don't want to if I feel that it won't be healthy for me. So that's definitely what my normal is now, right? So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Appreciate all of you all sharing that. I took some actually notes because I was sitting there like vibing with like all of the answers, like especially being a going. I'll go off of like a few different topic points I saw. Being a well, being an uncle as well too, and being able to like take my nephew to school and give him a kiss on the cheek and like, hey, wish you the best and everything is going good. Let me know how the day is going. Now to monitoring, make sure that he's not watching TikToks. And I was like, so it's just that challenging piece of it, or even going to my favorite restaurants. Like, I enjoy the vibe of some good music, being Jamaican, I'm Caribbean. I love going and listening to like just, yeah, listening to good music, good vibes. And now I got to like Grubhub it and just put it on Spotify to just like listen to my vibes and everything. But so trying to redefine what this is, or even being able to travel and understanding the limitations behind, what that looks like, and then really trying to figure out because this pandemic has even given me an opportunity to like realize that I may have time for things, but kind of going off of a few points, like sometimes you may not have even the energy for it because time and energy both have to match up. Because you may have the time, but you don't have the energy, or you may have the energy, but you don't have the time. Right. And I think that this pandemic has really given us an opportunity to kind of like really focus in and figure out more about ourselves and figure out what it is that we need to be our most present selves as well too, and then redefining what that looks like now. Because I also agree. I don't think it's going away. I think the post-COVID era. I think we're going to be having to navigate this space, and what exactly does that look like, and how are we going to be able to be our most present self so we can be as engaged for our residents, for our students, and for our colleagues, our loved ones as well too. So I love all of that. And then Angela, to the first year experience, I get that as well too. Like that first year experience was so huge, even being a UNLV alumni as well too. Like being here, knowing what that is, and having that taken away. Like I can only imagine because that connection of where you're meeting everybody for the first time, you're so excited, and how do you have a virtual premiere? Like how does that work? It's like that was a kickoff, and to know that was kind of switch and modify it around a little bit is it's kind of hard. So I do appreciate all of y'all as far as how y'all are getting through it. And but speaking of like what this new normal is now, I'd like to also kind of figure out what are y'all doing to really deal and cope with it, with this new normal. I know you guys all have kind of like talked about it a little bit, but if we can kind of dig a little bit deeper, so I can go ahead and take my notes because I'm like, oh, maybe I need to find a new playlist on Spotify, or figure out some new things to do with social distancing and everything like that. But how are you all really dealing and coping with this new change?
I can start. I find that I'm rediscovering um, interests that I had when I was much younger. And for example, I'm an avid reader, but I now make time. I'm a part of a book club now. My daughter helped me to join, and the books are written by people of color, and most of them are new authors. And so now I'm reading. I had a text this week. I was up to 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, I don't care what meetings I have. I'm finishing this book because I cannot put this down. But I find that I enjoy reading about characters who struggle, who most of the books I've selected are immigrants to the US and what their life experiences were supposed to be like in this, this America where they were seeking, dreams and hopes and what have you. But it's really caused me to think, I used to write a lot. I used to write short stories. I used to write poetry. And so now I've been trying to enroll in a writing course and looking at, other opportunities that are related to these interests that really bring a lot of joy to me. So I find that I'm using the time unintentionally, really, to rediscover who I am and what's important to me and what talents do I have and want to use that aren't really part of my profession at all, because the profession has taken up so much of my time. So, that's been very helpful for me.
I will say, initially, in terms of dealing with it, I felt like we just had to power through. Like, I remember when March hit and they were like, we're just going to get through spring break and we're all going to come back. And like, that never happened, right? So it was like this mindset of just like powering through day by day. We're just going to take it as it comes and we're going to, just keep moving in hopes that things would get better. And then I think come like August, September, when things clearly weren't getting better, it was like, okay, we have to figure out a new pattern, a new routine, because the days were just blending. It didn't feel like there were weekends anymore. It just felt like every day was just exhausting. And so moving forward, I feel like I've gotten to a better place where I have that separation where like come Friday at 5 o'clock, I'm like, all right, what are we going to do this weekend to bring ourselves some joy, to go do something, even if it's small stuff. So like finding spaces where you do feel, that health and safety protocols are being respected. And maybe you go to dinner once a month, where it's not as frequently, or I've taken my daughters to the movies and I tend to go to the movies that has less folks at it, not as busy a place, or just finding little projects, painting or something like that, trying to go for a walk. I will say we just moved here from California, so we haven't been walking a lot in this heat because we're not used to that, but we miss park time and things like that. And so really finding the space like on the weekends when we have that time, sitting down for dinner, making sure we talk a little bit just about outside things beyond the exhaustion of school and work. Has really been beneficial. I feel like I get weekends again now, and it doesn't feel like the days are just completely merging. So that's somehow I've dealt and kind of coped with it.
So for me, I'm rediscovering what I call my ABCs. Authenticity. I have neither the energy nor the inclination to pretend anymore. I don't know. I know that code switching is such a huge part of our identity as people of color. And I tell people I feel like my code switch is broken. Like it's hard for me to be anything other than I am in this space, simply because it is exhausting to constantly be shape shifting into every new environment that I have. And the reality is, code switching doesn't make me any more lovable or acceptable. It just makes me palatable for someone else's tolerance. So that's number one, is I'm trying to lean into my authenticity in all spaces, and that includes acknowledging what I do and don't know and being transparent about that. I no longer hold myself accountable to be the duty expert on all matters of life. And I'm okay with saying that. I don't know. I will find out. Let me get back to you on that. And then my B's are boundaries. Oh gosh, my favorite B in the world is boundaries. I'm always talking about the B word, and the B word is boundaries. And I'm talking about reclaiming my mind, reclaiming my time, reclaiming my spirit, reclaiming my soul. I'm no longer comfortable in relationships that don't feed my soul or my spirit just because it's been a long time that we've been friends or because we share DNA. I am fighting a virus and racism and political upheaval. I don't have time for emotional dementors. I can't be out there expectus patronus all day long, like casting spells to keep the mentors at bay. So my philosophy now is, does this feed me spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, socially? Not every relationship will feed you emotionally, but maybe I need it for some sort of advancement in my life. And I'm clear on what those boundaries are around that relationship. I don't expect to get what they can't offer in those relationships. And then C is I'm learning to cultivate joy wherever I am. And joy cultivation for me looks like I check my feed. Like if you were to look at my social media feed, I don't get depressed when I look at my feed. I got Viola Davis channeling joy. I have Tracy Ellis Ross channeling joy. I in my feed, on my space, and I treat my spaces like my home. I don't want anybody in there that I wouldn't want in my house or in my life or in my head, because those social media spaces, they feed me. So I follow other clinicians. I follow people who are empowering. I follow people who have good messages. I don't follow people who irritate, aggravate, agitate, or out there picking fights in these streets. That can come into my house regardless. And cultivating joy for me also means there's just certain news programs I don't choose to find out about. Like I already know. I've been Black 51 years. Like I already know what's out there in terms of stress and drama. So I don't need to invite it into my home. I recently discovered the Black News Channel. If you have not found it, please find that channel. It is amazing. Their hosts are 100% authentic. I remember something came up and the host looked at the other host and said, "I'm still in my feelings about that. You just gonna move on to the next subject?" I was like, "Oh snap, that's news." like so. I try to find spaces also that have authentic voices and authentic experiences and realness in them. And I limit my consumption of necessary evils. And that includes programming. I don't do trauma films anymore. I don't, I look for joy in my programming as well. I look for representation in my programming as well. I no longer do shows where I'm 100% invisible, you know. So, and I cultivate joy by spending time. And the same thing that Sharolyn said about finding people in your life that bring that value to your life. You know, if my life was a club, not everybody's getting in. Like some of y'all, I'm sorry, but you know, and then some of you might get in, but you're not going to get into the VIP lounge. So just being very intentional about what I put in my mind and what I put in my body and who I allow my energy to, because not everyone is worth your energy. So and I don't feel like I have to fight about that or justify it or clarify it. You know, this isn't working for me, it's sufficient. And I don't have a problem anymore blocking on all domains, even individually, like closing the door, blocking my ABCs.
I loved hearing about that. You guys also had very interesting responses here. I think the one I most relate to is trying to get like weekdays and weekends distinguished. So I try to set up a schedule for myself where on the weekends I kind of dedicate myself to the hobbies that I picked up over the, you know, whole quarantine period, because I tried a lot. One that I really absolutely have loved. I have a dog that he's a rescue, and he was pretty hard to work with before, and I think it's created a great bonding experience and opportunity for us. So that's something that I love to dedicate my time to with him, right? So it's just kind of my coping mechanism is really having separate, like setting, like you guys mentioned, boundaries between work and my own time. So making sure that those are separate and that they don't interact, because they're not supposed to interfere with each other. And especially when you're doing school and work at home, it's hard to keep it like compartmentalized. So you have to find something to dedicate your time to make sure that you can take your mind off of everything else.
I love it. I love it. Where were you when I was when I was going through the undergrad? Because I needed some of those nuggets of wisdom. I probably would have probably been a whole lot better off as an undergrad for sure. Definitely appreciate some of y'all sharing those wisdom, those nuggets. I love all of it. Oh, actually, I gotta know what kind of pup you got. I'm sorry, no, sorry about the tangent, but what kind of pup?
He's a Cholo Squinkly. He's a Mexican hairless dog. So
Oh,
cute.
okay. I've never heard of that before.
Have you watched Coco, the movie Coco?
Yeah. Oh,
That's Dante. He's a cello sprinkler.
Okay. Cool. Love it. And so appreciate all of you all sharing some of the things that you all have done to really de-stress and cope. Definitely, I know trying to avoid this heat. It's getting a little bit better now. So I know we coming from California, and it's 24/7 walking hours. But I know we can walk after 5 o'clock. Hopefully, it's a little overcast, so we're feeling pretty good. And definitely I see some of the joy of like writing and just even hearing just when you're talking about like as far as like figuring out like about writing and reinvesting your time like 3 a.m. couldn't put the book down, just like the joy I saw on your face. I was just looking and I'm like, oh, I wasn't trying to like stare too much, but I just love it. And then I gotta know the ABCs. What was the A? I was trying to get the A. I was sitting there taking notes. I'm like, what is the A? What was the A? Alfred, the A. What was
Authenticity.
the A?
Authenticity.
Authenticity. That's what it was. Okay.
Moving in authenticity, because when you're not authentic, it feels like a betrayal of self. And the truth is, when you show up other than you are, there's no guarantee you'll be accepted, so you'll be wounded twice.
Ooh. Deep. I love it. It was authenticity, boundaries, and cultivating joy. Correct? The ABCs.
Mm.
All right, definitely taking some. I told y'all at the beginning. I'm taking some notes. Y'all. I need to know. And then those emotional, the mentors. I was like, I don't know. That spoke to me a little bit there. I was like, yes, I need to get rid of all of that. And you say your life is a club. Not everybody gets in. I'm like, nuggets, gems. I feel all of that. So thank y'all so much for sharing that piece of it too. Um, and I know we also talked about some new things that some people are implementing as far as just being there for themselves, walking, being with the pub, writing, things along those lines. But are there some other things that you all would like to share? Something new that you all had to really just like really implement as a result of COVID that continues to work for you? So some new practices and things along those lines that you all had to implement as a result of COVID that continues to work for you all.
I want to second the boundaries around work and time and school
Mm.
because of the blurring of the lines. And that's a hard one to do. So I would say that, yeah, because we're used to people having access to us 24/7. So having to be really intentional about that. When I come in the door, I put my bag at the doorway to remind me that I'm not taking it further into the house with me. And I have not been good with that. And I'd also like to second this idea of writing, because I do think that putting your truth on paper, even if it's for no one else to read, and reading other people's truths is powerful. And I don't know if anybody dances, but like just finding a playlist and kicking it into gear. I had this thing that I did last week, and I might do this week. I don't know if I feel so good. Where I do this quitting time dance. like I encourage people to do like it's over. The day is over. Get your quitting time dance on to sort of energize yourself to start the rest of your week, the rest of your weekend. So dancing is another way. So connecting with your body in any way that feels good to you, be it yoga, be it meditation, be it dance, sort of reinvigorating your soul so that you don't lose sight of who you are once you walk out those doors. Because sometimes we're really tired, so that joy piece is hard and it may be a little harder to come by. So get your groove on, man. Play it Friday night, just got paid. Get going.
I have a new routine, and it's really kind of funny. Um, someone gave me a gift of red, fuzzy house slippers. And so I keep them because I love red. I keep them in my bedroom. And when I put my red, fuzzy house slippers on, that's it. There's nothing else. It's going to be done. I'll wear the black shoes throughout the day. But once I put my foot into the red slippers, I don't check emails. I don't do anything. Those red slippers for me mean I can curl up in my little space and take my book out with some tea and read. It is my time. So that is a visual for me because when I'm going through the bedroom and I'm looking at the slippers, I'm thinking, is it time to put them on yet? Maybe not yet, but they're my comfort. They're comfort for me. And so the other thing, new routine is really I do more cooking. In fact, I find that, in raising kids and in my career, I always had little shortcuts of, what can I buy that's already prepared on the shelf because I don't have time to do a lot of things. And I find that I don't like prepared things anymore. I've lost a taste for Starbucks. I like to get my own coffee and I like to grind it. Yeah, I don't go to Starbucks anymore. It tastes so bland. So I like to smell the aroma of freshly ground coffee. Then I make my own coffee. I've learned to cook I'm vegetarian, so I've learned to cook Indian foods. I go to an Indian grocer and I buy authentic spices so that when I'm cooking, I like to smell the aroma. So my eating habits have changed. I don't really enjoy eating things that are prepared anymore. They are not savory. And especially the coffee, it doesn't taste good to me anymore.
I would say similar. I've been doing a lot of things to like trigger my like smell, like just to take a deep breath. So like lighting candles more frequently, using incense because like it just makes me breathe deeper. It makes me like almost like check in with my body just because naturally. So I'm like, I tell myself, even if I'm not in the mood, like light an incense, light a candle so that because you will take that deep breath and it kind of helps center me and just get me to a place where I'm like, okay, how can I move forward? What else do I need? Do I need a drink of water? Do I need to go out, get some sun, or whatever else it may be? So using smell, I agree, is like a really good way because I think it helps you just like recognize where you're at and take a moment. So I've been doing that a lot more.
For me, I used to always like to work out with people around me, and I think COVID doesn't really allow for that, you know? The gym's closed and everything. There's really no people that you want to be with because chances are they might be going out too, and you don't want to get sick. And I also really didn't like running, but that's kind of a thing that I started to do now because it's something that you can do by yourself and where you don't have to be around too many people. You can do it like wherever it's really accessible, I think. I still don't like running that much, but I think it gets you out there. It makes sure that you're kind of connecting at least with your mind while you're running because you get to think, I think.
Yes, definitely appreciate all of that. So it seems like we're using our different senses between smells, between different tastes, and really just going out to the gym. Love that as well too. Or it's even not going to the gym, finding ways to just still be physically active as well too, or just having an item that brings us peace, and we know we have this item. This is our peace, and I really truly love and value that. Even myself too, being a person who loves to cook, like I mean, some good oxtail curry dough as well too, because I can't find a good, decent, better spot out here. I mean, there's a few hidden gems, but got a chance to rediscover some of the things that I really find a lot of enjoyment in as well too. Things I love. I'm a huge gamer as well, so like I've used that as a way to really be able to like kind of disconnect as well too. It's when I need to kind of get a chance to really reset as well too. So I figured okay, okay. I'm gonna need that spot for sure. I definitely gonna need that for sure. On some Grubhub, if they're on there. But yes, and I'm also curious to, I know we have a couple panelists in here, but I wanted to hear if it's okay, Dr. Barlow. I wanted to know what are you doing for yourself? How are you taking care of you? Like let's unpack that a little bit.
Well, I'm going to tell you, listening to everybody talk about how you all are taking care of yourself, I'm feeling like I'm lacking because I'm not feeling like that I'm really taking care of myself. I will say, most of y'all know this, right? Especially when we were confined and we'd be on these calls, that I have a dog, you know, a little dog. His name is Ace, and y'all have probably met him in one way or another uh, during the course of this pandemic. So with him, I started walking him, and I mean that was something that I'd never really done before the pandemic. Um, so that's something that I do. He gets mad at me when I don't walk him. It's kind of funny when we get ready to walk, you can see him stretching. And I'm like, well, I probably need to do that too, but I don't, right? But in all honesty, I have to be honest that I'm still probably not taking as good a care of myself, right, as I probably should have, right? And I don't know. I don't know. So I'm envious of listening to all of your nuggets that you're providing, and wanting to see if those are some things that I can also get back into, or get into, using you all as inspiration.
Don't be
But
envious.
I will say this. One of the things that did happen that I think was a positive for me and certainly my family in particular, because I have two grown children, right? Grown daughters. They're not children, and they obviously both have their own lives, right? Um, but one of the things that happened as a result of COVID is that every week we play cards, right? We taught them how to play bid whist. So if you're from the Midwest, I know Sharolyn, you know about it, right? We are bid whist players, rather than spade players, and so we taught them how to. And yeah, Theo, you know what I'm talking about, right? We taught them how to play bid whist, and so every week we basically have these marathon tournaments of playing bid whist, which means too that as a family we got much closer, and I was reintroduced to my children, which was a very interesting thing to see how much they had grown from being my children to being women, if that makes any kind of sense. It was so that's one thing that I find that COVID did that was certainly a positive. Certainly a positive.
Can I just say, don't be envious. In the spirit of authenticity and transparency, this mess is hard, and self care can be hit or miss. And I'm here today with my voice doing this number right here, wondering if I should take Mama home. Um, and I just want to say that the reality is this is a process and a progress. Like this progress, not perfection, right?
Yeah,
I don't
true.
nail this every time. I'm not out there shaking my groove thing every day. You
No,
know,
yeah.
it's a process, and it's just a process to get there. And the truth of the matter is, it's like fighting the wind because it keeps
Mhm.
escalating on the other side. And I also wanted to say, this is my self care, y'all. Like real talk. In those moments when I get to connect with this community and have these conversations, even if it's just to say it's hard, and have somebody go, girl, you too? You just
Mhm.
saying, this is part of what I'm doing, is having these conversations and having these relationships with people in spaces and places where I can be authentic. Because that's a boundary too. Is showing up in spaces where my full self can be accepted and loved. So no, don't be jealous. Like I'm here. I should have been home. Like you hear me? I'm here. So I don't do it perfectly, not even close. Like
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Appreciate all of y'all sharing. And Dr. Barlow also did not know you played Bidwiz. I'm more of a spades
Hey,
player personally, but I
no,
can I can throw some cards either way. So I mean, you know, we
I've been trying. I've been trying to think
hmm,
about how I can incorporate having a bid whist tournament here in the student in the intersection, right? To make it an educational experience, right? I'm trying to figure out how I can do that. I already know that we got some people who play, like Dr. Watson plays, Dr. Fame plays. So I know some people who play, but I just can't figure that out yet
okay,
for the
okay.
justification, right?
Well, whenever you want a Midwest lesson, just let me know. I got you.
Okay. All right. Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan.
But yeah, with and I want just be mindful. I know we have about 2 minutes before our session, and it seems like just time flies when we are just really engaging and just talking about the things that just really how we can yeah, talk about the things that we can do to be able to just really be there for ourselves. But I just want to see if there's any other little nuggets that we would like to add, just like maybe some other key takeaways that we have for like the good of everyone, and some things that we can pass along. 'Cause I know this is also recorded as well too, so we'll be sending that out as well too to make sure that people are really getting some like other little nuggets that they can do to really just be the most present version of themselves, to make sure that as we navigate this very interesting year that we are again our best versions of ourselves and the most present version of ourselves, so we can really be there for ourselves and then we ultimately be there for others as well too.
I'm gonna say take those mental health days, especially right now. I think there's times where we feel like I can't take a day off because I'm gonna be more behind or there's something important coming up. But like recognizing at what cost, do we show up, and recognizing that we all deserve benefited out. We all deserve moments to ourselves. We deserve to take that time when we recognize we need it. So take those mental health days and work through the rest of the stuff later, because your job's going to be here. Other things are going to be here that you can work through. But if you're not healthy, it's going to be even harder, right? If you stay that day and then tomorrow something else comes up, then what, So take those mental health days when you need them.
I'd like to add to what Egypt said. I had an experience, which is taking care of your body. I had an experience, with teaching from Zoom and having all the Zoom meetings and staying up late on Zoom. I wasn't taking care of my eyes. I was leaving the contacts in longer than they needed to be, and developed an ulcer where I couldn't, yes, it was horrible. I could not, I had to turn all the lights off in the house. Any little piece of light would send a shooting pain through my eye. I had just enough, ability to be able to go on the internet and try to figure out what this was, and then call the ophthalmologist in the morning, and that's what it was. And so for an entire week, I couldn't do any work, and it made me realize just how important my eyes are. And what would my life be like if I could not use my eyes? I can't read, I can't write. It was a very, very frightening experience. And I said, life is reaching out to teach me a lesson here. What's important? Shut everything down. Take care of your body. Take care of your eyes, because you don't realize all the parts that you use and how they contribute to your joy in your life until something happens and you can't use the part. So that was a huge lesson that I learned about just taking care of my body, especially my eyes.
Self-compassion is key. We're not going to do this perfectly. I say all the time, there's no guidebook for the apocalypse. I, I, I don't have a map for this. There's nothing to tell us how to navigate this really difficult space. And 2020 and 2021 has been a lot. So be kind to you. You're doing the best that you can. And we're not always going to do it perfect, but we're still here, right? People, how you doing? I'm still standing, still here, still in one piece, still trying my best, still trying to move forward with love. Start with love for you, and start with loving you appropriately and properly, so that you have love to give to other people. Just be kind to you. This is hard. It really is.
Well,
I'm gonna go along.
okay.
Uh,
As usual, even when we have our twice a month meetings of the Intersecting Connections, right? This particular session proved to be just like that. where we are able to truly have some real discussions, some open and candid discussions, that we hope that each one of us are able to take something away from it. I know certainly I've taken some things away from this particular session in particular, and I know that though I'm going to assume that everybody else here is taking those things away also, and that anyone who would actually be able to access this recording will find it helpful, because this is what we try to do with the Intersecting Connections, is to have real programming, real discussion, open and candid, because that's the only way that we're able to get through some of this. And certainly we know that this COVID, it has changed and impacted all of our lives and has made us, have to look inward to determine really and truly what's important to us. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, right, not sure that we can take care of anybody else. I know that would make it pretty difficult for us here in the intersection. And even though I know that I said that I probably am not taking as good a care of myself as I ought to, I think a lot of that it is because it is so important to me to make sure, particularly that the students that are coming through here, the students that we work with on a daily, right, that they are taken care of, that my mind won't shut down. And I really think that that was one of my issues and remains one of my issues, that during COVID, my mind would not shut down and would not allow me to focus in on me, because I felt like the need to have to focus in on others. But I'm going to really take your advice and your inspiration from this. And I want to thank you, Theo, for moderating a wonderful discussion. Egypt, Sharolyn, Angela, thank you all so much for participating. And Dr. Crab, you're good. I suggest you all get on her, check out her TikTok channel. She has a wonderful TikTok channel, which I think that sometimes she even does that quitting time dance. But I want to say thank you all so much for being here today.
And I just wanted to add one thing as well too, just for the recording for those who get a chance to watch it. It's actually got this from a mentor of mine as well too, which is an acronym called WARM, and it means "What about remembering me?" And so it's always be mindful to be warm to yourselves, and really just take a chance of what about remembering me. So at the end of the day, always be warm and always remember yourself, and take care of yourself, and so you can ultimately take care of each other.
Thank you.